New York to Moscow, Brasilia to Beijing, and all points around the globe, welcome to World Community News with your award-winning host, Rachel Wright.
A decade ago, amidst rising fears of global terrorism, dwindling resources, climate change, and economic instability, the United Nations voted overwhelmingly to implement the Global Peace Initiative. It had become obvious to every rational human being that greedy capitalism, religious bigotry, social injustice, and resource exploitation by wealthy corporations was completely unsustainable. Today, we live in a much better world thanks to visionary leaders who have made it possible. Welcome to a special anniversary edition of Harmonious Union Today. I'm delighted to be your host, Rachel Wright. This marks the 2000th day of the implementation of the Global Peace Initiative. We are honored to have with us the very distinguished Dr. Woodrow House, who is the Secretary of Communal Harmony of the Sovereign. Thank you, Dr. House, for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Rachel. Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome anytime. There have been many positive changes since the first implementation of the Global Peace Initiative, and I'm sure that many of our audience members would love to hear about those improvements. But before we get to that, and if it's all right with you, I would like to ask you about some of the challenges that the luminaries had faced in building this new world order.
Certainly, Rachel. Adversity can be an extremely productive teacher.
Such great wisdom, Dr. House. Let's begin with a criticism that has been suggested by extreme radicals. How do you respond to the uneducated assertions that the forming of the Harmonious Union and the promotion of the United Nations Secretary General to the position of global sovereign somehow violates the independent authority of individual nations?
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to address this question. I'm sure you're as saddened as I am that this very small group of people are so unenlightened in the dawn of this new age. In truth, each socioeconomic zone still chooses their own leadership. They even handle their affairs the way that they see fit. The primary responsibility of the sovereign and his team of luminaries is to facilitate inter-community relationships and to steward the values that are set by the greater global community. These essential tenets ensure equality among the zones in various areas, including social and economic justice, education, healthcare, and so much more.
That is so true. But how do you answer protesters who believe that while global interventions were justified in areas like Rwanda, Nigeria, Myanmar, and the Middle East, allege that economic and climate restrictions in Europe, the United States, and other advanced countries was an overreach?
Well, firstly, let's be honest. The United States and Europe were two of the worst offenders when it comes to social injustice. It only made sense that these measures started with them. Secondly, the radicals make it out to be as if there was an outside entity forcing them into this, which is absolutely ridiculous. Fortunately, there are progressive leaders in each of these areas that realize the need and work hard for years to move this forward, often with great resistance from their constituents and their colleagues.
So you're saying the United States and Europe supported these changes?
Not at all. What I'm saying is there are leaders that advocated for and proposed these changes from the beginning. They were the architects of this great new world order. Much more enlightened and important than any so-called founding father, and definitely more important than any constitution. George Washington may have been able to build a nation, but our luminaries have been able to unite the world.
I could not agree with you more. But for those who do not yet believe, can you please substantiate what you're saying?
Certainly. First of all, you have to remember that the United States provided the location and much of the funding for the United Nations. When conspiracy theorists tried to coerce their politicians to defund and pull out, these great leaders stood their ground and pushed forward. If that doesn't indicate how much they're vested into our goals, then I don't know what is. On top of that, the policies that we now live by were approved by 178 nations in the 1992 Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. The president at the time, George H.W. Bush, not only signed off on the plan, but he paved the way for it many years before.
This is such a great point. We have a clip from our archives. This is U.S. President George Herbert Walker Bush speaking with a joint session of the U.S. Congress on September 11th, 1990. Let's take a look.
A new partnership of nations has begun, and we stand today at a unique and extraordinary moment. Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge, a new era, freer from the threat of terror, stronger in the pursuit of justice, and more secure in the quest for peace. An era in which the nations of the world can prosper and live in harmony. 100 generations have searched for this elusive path to peace, while 1,000 wars raged across the span of human endeavor. And today that new world is struggling to be born. A world quite different from the one we've known. A world where the rule of law supplants the rule of the jungle. A world in which nations recognize the shared responsibility for freedom and justice. A world where the strong respect the rights of the weak. Muslims and non-Muslims, Arabs and non-Arabs, soldiers from many nations stand shoulder to shoulder, resolute. We're now in sight of a United Nations that performs as envisioned by its founders. As I've pointed out before, conservation efforts are essential to keep our energy needs as low as possible. Once again, Americans have stepped forward to share a tearful goodbye with their families before leaving for a strange and distant shore. At this very moment, they serve together with Arabs, Europeans, Asians, and Africans in defense of principle and the dream of a new world order. And that's why they sweat and toil in the sand and the heat and the sun. And if they can come together under such adversity, if old adversaries like the Soviet Union and the United States can work in common cause, then surely we, who were so fortunate to be in this great chamber, Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, can come together to fulfill our responsibilities here.
So it looks like there were some important visionaries working to bring the New World Order to fruition long before its implementation a few years ago.
Indeed, Rachel. The root of these ideas go back to the 1800s and long before. Politicians from every party played a role. What the ancient Babylonians were unable to do with their tower, we've accomplished through education and sheer political will. We have been able to achieve global unity, and we are ascending to heaven.
Well stated, Dr. House. So, are we there yet?
Not by a long shot. We have accomplished a lot, but there's a great deal left to be done. There's a variety of disciplines that must continue to merge if we have any hope of saving our planet from social, political, and environmental disaster. The work of tolerance and equality have only just begun.
Well, we are fortunate to have people like you and the Sovereign riding the ship.
I know I speak for the Sovereign when I say that we could not have accomplished these things without great community members like yourself and the millions of others who recognize the need for sacrifice and commitment.
I understand that you had a record number of community tip-offs just this last month.
Yes, actually we did. We're so proud of our schools. They have really made the difference.
In what way?
Well, the Department of Education put together a wonderful new curriculum that helps teach our students about their importance in the global community. Helps them better understand the reporting process and also the signs of mental illness that they should be looking for. Of the nearly 11,000 mentally ill that we were able to help last month, over half of those came in from tips that were reported by students living in the home. Now, parents, grandparents, siblings were all able to get the help that they desperately needed from one of our state-of-the-art mental cleansing facilities. And at the same time, other members of the community now feel even safer. It really is a win-win.
I understand that the Department of Education has been instrumental in putting together an info vid to get the word out.
That's right, Rachel.
I just love the actors. They truly embody the character and love of the harmonious union and our planet. Let's watch it together.
Hi, my name is Sydney.
And my name's Milan.
We are co-chairs for the Harmonious Union Youth Association.
Hoo-yah!
We are here today to talk to you about a very serious concern in our community and what you can do to help.
As you know, we have made great advancements towards saving our planet. We are creating a world of peace and harmony, but there are still dangerous threats facing us every day.
We know that most of you are already recycling, conserving water, and saving energy, and we are very proud of you.
Now we need you to do something just as important. It will not only help the planet, it may save people you love.
Before our advanced and enlightened society emerged, bad religious indoctrination, contaminated books, radio, television, homeschooling, and other dangerous threats caused some of the members of society to suffer mental damage that distorted their view of reality.
This very serious condition, if left untreated, may result in irreversible mental and physical limitations that can even lead to death. Additionally, these abnormal thoughts can affect other members of our community, which, if not stopped, could cause a complete breakdown of our harmonious union.
But don't worry, the luminaries will never let that happen. The great news is you can help the community and the people you care about at the same time.
That's right. Here's all you have to do. Step 1. Watch. Watch for the signs. We'll give you those in just a moment.
Step 2. Report. Report by calling Community Protective Services at star 911 on your cell phone or simply use the Help My Friend mobile app. If you are not sure, just do it. It's better to be safe than sorry. Remember, if you see something, say something.
Step 3. Comfort. Do not say or do anything that might make your friend or family member feel uncomfortable in any way. If the patient discovers that you have contacted Community Protective Services, it could trigger a dangerous mental episode that could cause them to inadvertently hurt themselves or someone else.
So there you have it. Watch, report, comfort. Say it with me.
Watch, report,
Comfort.
Now that you know what to do, how do you know when to do it? There are several warning signs that indicate you should contact Community Protective Services.
Sign number 1. Politics. If you hear someone talking about a time when things were better, when they had more freedom, if they criticize the sovereign, the luminaries, or the harmonious union, they are most likely impaired and should receive treatment right away.
Sign number 2, selfishness. If someone talks about individual rights, private land ownership, or personal responsibility and other such things, it is a sign that they are suffering from mental illness.
Sign number 3, guns. If someone other than Community Protective Services mentions gun ownership or Second Amendment rights, or worse, they have or claim to have a gun, notify CPS immediately.
Sign number 4, intolerance. If someone openly or subtly indicates disapproval of a community member because of their race or sexual preference, the incident should be reported immediately so the patient can receive the help they need.
Sign number 5, religion. If someone talks about God or prays to anyone other than the sovereign, it should be reported immediately. Also, if anyone possesses a Bible or other Christian literature, the CPS should be notified right away. This is the most dangerous of all mental illnesses. It has been the cause of almost all the unnecessary death in the world throughout history. Who needs a divisible savior when we have the sovereign right here?
So now you know the top 5 signs of mental illness: politics, selfishness, guns, intolerance, and false religion.
Now all you have to do is
Watch, report,
comfort.
This information and much more is available on our free mobile app, My Hoo-yah, which is pre-installed on your community-issued youth phone. Upon opening the application, a retinal scan will verify your identity and automatically enroll you in the Harmonious Union Youth Association. There is no need to ask your parents. It is already approved and sanctioned by the sovereign. If you are under 5 years old, you are automatically enrolled at birth and can get started right away by using your community identification number.
Thanks for watching. We hope to see you at the next community youth rally.
Hoo-yah!
I can certainly see why that InfoVid has been so effective. It explains it so well, makes me wish I was younger.
I know what you mean, Rachel, but this isn't just for young people. Everyone should get involved. There's a brand new app for older communitarians like myself called My Community, and it's already on your phone.
I, for one, am looking forward to watching, reporting, and comforting. There are definitely a few people I have been concerned about.
Don't wait, Rachel. It's better safe than sorry.
You are so right. Let's turn our attention to some of the milestones that have been achieved by the global community over the past 2,000 days. What would you say was the most significant?
Lies, lies, and more lies. This looks like the perfect opportunity to interrupt your regularly scheduled authoritarian programming to give you propaganda inoculation from our specially formulated injection of truth. You can call me Maximus, and this is your Freedom Now network, coming to you from the bunker of freedom, buried somewhere in the midst of the forest of fabrication, awaiting the day when truth and liberty will one day rise again. Today, we lament 2,000 days of the oppressive and dictatorial regime known as the Harmonious Union. That's right, folks. 2,000 days of forcing people off their farms and out of their rural homes and stuffing them into walkable cities. 2,000 days of governmental land grabs to enrich friends, repay political favors, and reforest the planet. 2,000 days of crippling taxes, fees, and regulations that have decimated private transportation for all but the privileged elites. I don't see the so-called luminaries walking or taking public transportation, do you? 2,000 days of sustainable development funded by taking your money and giving it to the business people with the right connections. 2,000 days of trampling on the rights of individuals in the name of the greater good. 2,000 days of rationing of energy, water, and all the carbon culprits. 2,000 days of circumventing elected representatives with overreaching bureaucracies that micromanage every aspect of our lives. 2,000 days of ever-increasing taxes, fees, and regulations. And 2,000 days of reproduction laws and policies aimed at restricting and reducing our population with the claims of saving the planet. Yes, folks, Dr. Woodrow House was not lying about one thing. United Nations Agenda 21 has arrived. A few hundred years ago, the father of liberty, John Locke, said, "Government has no other end but the preservation of property." Dr. Locke would find himself at great odds with this regime. Our job at Freedom Now News is to expose the truth and to liberate your mind from the formidable and destructive propaganda that seeks to enslave you. Before we reveal today's historical truth, I would like to remind you what the fight is all about. The J family raised horses and cattle for over 100 years on their 5,000-acre Oklahoma ranch. They fought drought, tornadoes, disease, and cattle rustlers. But a few years ago, they faced an enemy that was so overwhelmingly powerful, they succumbed to defeat.
5 years ago, we were devastated when Harmonious Union came in and stole my family's ranch. The ranch had been in my family since 1889. Our ancestor Henry Wilkins J. started with 160 acres of land that he got during the Oklahoma land rush. Over those years, we bought more land as it became available, and we worked hard to build and maintain a thriving ranch. At the time of the government seizure, we had 5,000 acres of land. The land was divided up. Part of it was given to real estate developers for wind farms, for sustainable energy. The other parts were set up as a green zone and as a black bear habitat. Our land and our ranch was the American dream and promise given to us by our forefathers so many years ago. We spent over 100 years pouring our blood, sweat, and tears into that, and it was ripped away from us. This is America. It was not supposed to happen. We never thought it would happen or that it could happen, but it did.
And that, my fellow freedom lovers, is why we are here. Today we are poised to restore another small piece of our stolen history. As we are quickly approaching Easter, we are going to rip the lid off the official regime position of the holiday and uncover the truth. For a little bit of background, here's our field correspondent, Catherine Berry.
Every child knows that Easter is the most religious holiday of the year. It is a time set aside to commemorate and remember the powerful story of the Great Resurrection. On Easter, communitarians around the globe celebrate all things green. It is regarded by government school teachers as the great promise of spring. When the new plants are beginning to grow and the trees are coming to life once again, yes, it is the day that the world celebrates Mother Earth rising from the dead. It is on this global holiday that each community sacrifices a portion of their land to the earth by designating new green zones to help replenish the ozone and protect the planet. As mandated by global policy, everyone gathers at 6 a.m. to cultivate the new area. Adults are given tools to break ground, and children are given Easter baskets with seeds to plant behind them. Older youth follow behind, covering the seed and providing water. After approximately 9 hours, the planting is complete, and the community comes together for an eco-friendly picnic of soy, hummus, and split pea soup. Music and a selection of poems are presented celebrating the provision of the earth. Although this tradition has become nearly ubiquitous over the past half-decade, this holiday dates back many millennia with very different customs. We spoke with former professor of ancient cultures, Abigail Washington. Professor, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Professor, would you please tell us about the origins of Easter and the different ways it has been celebrated over the years?
Certainly. Some scholars believe the roots of Easter date all the way back to the ancient civilization of Babylon, which is possibly the root for all mythologies in all cultures around the world. According to some sources, Nimrod was the first king of the ancient city, and he was instrumental in the building of a tower that united his people. When he was assassinated by his great-uncle, Nimrod's lover, a woman named Semiramis, claimed that the king had ascended into the heavens and merged with the sun. She encouraged followers to call him Baal. Some believe that later he was also called Zeus, among other things. Of course, being the wife of a god made her a goddess, and she demanded to be worshipped. She was considered the goddess of fertility, of love, and of war. She was later named Venus by the Romans, and as you could see her rise before her lover, the sun.
Do I understand correctly that the planet Venus was thought to be a goddess and the sun her lover?
Yes, that's right. Not only that, but she claimed she fell to earth as a great egg.
So that's where we get Easter eggs from.
That is the supposition.
But how does all of this tie into Easter?
Well, we have already spoke of the great egg, which is symbolic of fertility. Semiramis was believed to show up every spring to help the growth of crops.
Okay, now I'm getting the picture.
Perhaps the greatest link is her Assyrian name, Ishtar, or more properly pronounced, Easter.
Wow, so you're saying that the worship of the earth and the environment didn't start with the United Nations and Agenda 21?
Not hardly. They missed being the originators by several millennia.
That is very enlightening. Thank you so much for your time.
You are quite welcome.
And there you have it, Maximus, at least one explanation of the origin of Easter.
Thank you, Catherine. That was very interesting. When we return, we'll take a look at the Christian aspects of Easter. We will have special guest Bishop J. Edwards with us. Also coming up, we will have a shocking news about our roving reporter, Alex McDougall. Stay tuned for the news after this commercial break.
Are you scared? Are you being hunted by the regime? Don't know where to turn? Well, I'm Crazy Davy Crockett, and I'm here to help. Did you get caught hiding money from the revenuers? Did you forget to burn the family Bible? Did you say the F word in public? Did you inadvertently position your hand like a gun? Did you exceed your monthly allowance of carbon emissions? Did you say Jesus? Did you criticize a government-sanctioned lifestyle choice? Did you think a non-approved thought? Are you ready to shake off the shackles of tyranny, flee the global dictatorship, and live with free, like-minded people. I represent a team of highly specialized former Special Forces freedom fighters, and we're crazy! If you love freedom as much as we do, we are here to help you out of the situation you are in. Why? Because we're crazy! Don't delay, call today. 555-B-NO-MARK. That's 555-B-NO-MARK. Leave your name and secure contact information and we will be in touch. Call today, 555-B-NO-MARK. That's 555-B-NO-MARK.
Welcome back to Freedom Network News. I'm Lucy Knox. Despite propaganda to the contrary from government-run media, FNN has uncovered evidence that disillusionment and distrust continues to grow among the citizenry of self-proclaimed harmonious union. We recently received this homemade video from a government worker and his pregnant wife who have become increasingly troubled by the things they have seen.
I know we're taking a big risk here, but I can't take it anymore. Someone has to speak out. I work for Community Protective Services. We are tasked with investigating and, when warranted, enrolling patients in therapeutic programs to help them better align with the expectations of the harmonious union. At least that's the official line. I'm beginning to believe that it's more about brainwashing than therapy. Many of the patients that we transport are never heard from again. When family members ask, we are supposed to tell them that their family member is especially ill, and visits from family members would only exacerbate their condition. The ones that do go home often appear somehow empty. It's as if they have lost their will or their soul. It's very disturbing.
For a long time, he wouldn't even talk to me. I could tell something was wrong. Whenever I asked, he would just change the subject. Then he started talking and even yelling in his sleep, saying things like, "Please don't take me away. I won't read my Bible anymore. I didn't realize I was being critical of the sovereign. It won't happen again. Please don't take me from my family." It got increasingly worse, especially when he found out I was pregnant.
It's true. I started wondering what it would be like to raise a child in this kind of world. When I closed my eyes at night, I saw hundreds of dads begging their children to recant their stories and let them stay home. Then I realized that with the thoughts I was having, it could one day be me, turned in by my own child.
I wanted him to quit, but as you know, there's an employment freeze right now. No one is allowed to leave their job that they're currently in, and no employers are allowed to terminate an employee. The only way out is to be taken away by CPS, and that's not an option.
Freedom lovers everywhere will be glad to know that Davy Crockett's freedom fighters have rescued this young couple and have whisked them away to one of the few remaining freedom zones where they are eagerly awaiting the birth of their first child. Suspicion and distrust of the sovereign and his minions is not limited to freedom fighters, Bible thumpers, and compromised government workers. It is also increasingly found in the halls of what is considered by most to be a bastion of socialist and communist thought, public education. This video was discovered by a popular social site frequented by college students. We reached out to the student for further information or comment, but he has been reported missing.
Hey guys, this is Jackson, and I'm a little bummed right now with school, life, the whole thing. And I was a kid when the sovereign, took charge, and I was really into it. And I thought everything was gonna be prime. But I grew up hearing folks talking about division, racism, injustice, inequality, climate change, the whole 9 yards. And I didn't think there was gonna be pretty much a world lived by the time I graduated. But when the initiative was made law, I can remember how happy my peeps were. They thought that things were finally going to be the way that they should. Now, a lot of things did get better for a little while. I mean, free healthcare, free college, no worries about food or shelter. I mean, who wouldn't be down with that type of stuff? But the problem is that it seemed like a lot of people just gave up. And like the food I used to love, the entertainment I used to enjoy, and the clothes I used to wear. It just seemed like a lot of things are a lot more limited now than they used to be. And a lot of students these days, they think that they're living it up by having all this sex they want to and doing all the drugs and God knows whatever else they're doing. But the thing is, when they graduate, the union is telling them what kind of jobs they're going to do, or where they're going to live, or what kind of car they're going to drive, if any kind of car at all, and how much money they're going to be able to make. So, I mean, yeah, decisions are a lot easier than it used to be, but it seemed like there's no freedom. Now, hold up. I know I shouldn't say that word because the CPS could cut my homie away at any time. I've seen it happen for a lot less. I mean, some of my friends have disappeared and haven't been seen since. So, yeah. So I know something is off. But I'm not sure. But something is messed up. And my professors keep telling us that they fought hard. Everything is great. How long and hard they fought for all this stuff. But I'm not sure about that. They say we're sticking it to the man and tearing down greedy corporations, but it seems like all the people with all the money is getting all the breaks and all the power, while people like us are just getting told what to do. Equality, yeah, but there seems to be some that are more equal than others. And I probably shouldn't be saying all this and putting it on the net, but I'm just wondering if anybody else is feeling the way I am. If so, let me know. Jackson out.
Also in the news today, the Harmonious Union and their jackbooted thugs continue to stomp on the civil and religious liberties of our friends and neighbors. While the world struggles with famine, disease, pestilence, and war, our esteemed governmental authorities thought that the best use of their time would be invading and arresting attendees of a small Christian gathering in the small community of Liberty, Kentucky. FNN was able to get this eyewitness account from an unnamed man who happened to be in the area.
I was just coming back to the bus stop from my friend's house when all of a sudden CPS arrived in armored vehicles with assault weapons and dogs, and they raided this house. I didn't know what to do, so I just stood there for a while and watched, and then I heard some shots ring out, and they started dragging bodies out of the house. Must have been 8 or 9 in all. Even some small children. Blood everywhere. I heard there were some radical Christians in the area, but I didn't know they were so close. And I certainly didn't expect all this to happen.
FNN also received this exclusive footage from 2 teenagers who were in the house when it was raided.
I have questioned what they've been telling me. I was a member of the Harmonious Youth Association, and now I'm scared of what they're telling me. My sister had reported my dad for being religious, and we haven't seen him since. I miss him a lot. I mean, I found one of his old diaries, and he talked about how he loved Jesus, and I had to read more about it. The Bible that my dad had hidden behind this loose board, and I had to read through it. This book called Matthew 21, and I was floored. Jesus actually said that people's children will rise up against their parents, and people will be hated because of Jesus. True. I realized how evil we can be and how much we need a Savior. That's why I was in the house when it was raided. I just wanted to learn more about Jesus. Thanks to one of the adults who helped me get away from the enforcers, I can't believe they shot him.
It was crazy. Barking, yelling, gunshots, then the lights went out, and then the room was filled with gas. So I snuck out a secret tunnel after I knew my girl was safe. She barely got out thanks to Brother Barry. He even took a bullet for her. It's crazy how we were just talking about how Jesus died and rose again on Easter so that we could live with God forever. Some people may think this will make me want to go back to Harmonious Union, but no way. I am more committed than ever to seek the kingdom of God replace the satanic government they so-called harmonious. When Jesus comes back, he's really going to show them what an unstoppable kingdom really is. It's Matthew 24, Revelation 19, dude. He's coming back soon.
This makes the 6th reported raid on a private religious meeting this week. Efforts appear to be increasing in an attempt to eradicate all vestiges of religious activity and freedom of conscience. Here with more is Freedom Network News Special Religion Correspondent Phyllis Wheatley.
Enslaved by the ancient Babylonians, Assyrians, and Egyptians, massacred by the Greek king Antiochus Epiphanes and Germans Adolf Hitler, the Jewish race has seen more than its share of religious persecutions. It is not great surprise, then, that the spiritual offspring of the Jews, the Christians, have also seen their share of tough times. Although suffering began with the cruel beating and state execution of its father, Jesus of Nazareth, the continued resistance against the faithful was made apparent just a few years later with the death of one of the church's deacons by the name of Stephen. This was followed by the state executions of nearly all the original disciples. In 161, Roman emperors Marcus Aurelius began widespread persecutions that would continue to accelerate for nearly 150 years. Over the centuries and across the globe, untold thousands of Christians have been persecuted, purged from their homelands, and have given their lives for their faith. Jesus himself warned his followers, "If you live on the world's terms, the world will love you as one of its own. But since I picked you to live on God's terms and no longer the world's terms, the world is going to hate you." John 15:19. So while the cultural occurrence of modern political fancies may not be new, they are at least somewhat surprising in light of the massive appeal to equality and tolerance. This is Phyllis Wheatley for Freedom Network News. Thank you.
And so it would seem that, like their spiritual ancestors of old, modern Christians are more committed to their God than they are to their lives. Here is what one underground pastor has to say.
We are pressed on every side by trouble, but we're not crushed. We are perplexed, but not driven by despair. We are hunted down, but never abandoned by God. We get knocked down, but we are not destroyed. Through the suffering, our bodies continue to share in the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be seen in our bodies. Yes, we will live under constant danger of death because we serve Jesus, so that the life of Jesus will be evident in our dying bodies. 2 Corinthians 4:8-11.
What inspirational faith in such challenging times. That's the news for today. We now return you to Maximus and his special report on Easter.
Thank you, Lucy and Phyllis. Before we get back to our special report on Easter, I have the sad duty of reporting the disappearance of our mobile reporter, Alex McDougall. FNN has learned that the tractor trailer he used as a cover was taken by government forces earlier this week, and he has not been heard from since that time. We are forced to acknowledge that he has been arrested or worse. Alex chose to brand himself with the moniker Alex McDougall after the seaman and merchant Alexander McDougall, who served as a New York leader of the Sons of Liberty before and after the American War for Freedom. The name could not have been more fitting. Although we have never shown his face before, our reasons for not doing so no longer apply. In honor and tribute to our dear friend, colleague, and fellow freedom fighter, we now allow you to see him up close and personal in his final video journal entries.
Over the past 5 years, the Harmonious Union aggressively pursued its mission, which was laid out in the United Nations Agenda 21. Under the auspices of sustainable development, lower carbon emissions, and environmental regulations, Union is now effectively controlling the land, air, and sea. I have uncovered 9 basic tenets that drive Agenda 21. Move people from private land into urban housing. It's easier to control that way. Create large wilderness spaces and populate with large carnivores so as to give the earth back. Besides, makes it a whole lot more difficult to move around in those spaces when you have predators. Eliminate automobiles and create walkable cities. That lowers carbon emissions and keeps people in check. They use the idea of making a smaller carbon footprint. Use public funds to promote businesses in line with sustainable development goals. Crony capitalism at its best. Not really capitalism because nobody owns anything. The only difference between these guys and Uncle Vito and Uncle Vinny and Al Capone and the rest of them is they wear cheaper suits and they don't have Italian accents. Focus policy on the greatest good rather than the good of the individual. Pure socialism. It's always better to take care of the masses, all the people, instead of the individual. Drastically reduce use of power, water, and anything else that creates carbon pollution. Allow bureaucrats to make sweeping decisions without interference from the democratic process. Get freedom out of the way. Increase taxes, fees, and regulations to give the government more control. Nanny governments treat citizens like children. Enact policies to reduce population, less strain on Mother Earth. This kind of mandate grants a lot of power over local and even national governments. It's no wonder our freedoms are shrinking. Over the last few years, I've been hauling a little contraband along with my official loads to kind of help with the cause of freedom. Well, even more than a little. I've hauled everything from gasoline to food to magazines, and one time I even hauled some U.S. Constitutions. But this load? The Bibles. I remember my granny reading me the Bible when I was little, taking me to church, but my parents weren't really into that stuff, so it really didn't mean much to me. So the idea of institutionalized, organized Christianity was never really my thing. However, even in the military, I carried a Gideon Bible in my pocket. I do believe in God. And this whole idea of one nation under thing, I'll fight for that. Okay, so I'm a little freaked out now. I started reading these Bibles and I can't believe what I'm seeing. It predicts increasing wars, parents and children turning against each other, a worldwide dictatorship, plagues, pestilence, and a lot more. I'm starting to wish I'd paid more attention and connected with some of those people at church. In fact, one place in there actually warns people not to give up on church, but to join together. When I get to my drop-off point, I'm definitely going to hook up with some of these Christians and find out why they believe what they believe, what exactly they believe, and why they keep going even in the face of everything that they're going through. So I dropped off the Bibles a few days ago, and I've been reflecting a lot on what the pastor said to me. She said the belief in God is not enough. She told me that the Apostle James wrote that even the demons believe in God and are afraid of him. The problem is belief and fear don't keep you from going to hell. Today I finally had enough of wrestling with God, and I asked him to forgive my sins and all the wasted years. I'm going to connect with other Christians every chance I get now. I've experienced an incredible amount of peace since I made Jesus my Lord and Savior. I just found out that HU has been investigating me since I delivered those Constitutions a few months ago. I thought I'd covered my tracks a little better than that. A friend of mine on the inside says that they're going to make their move today. I thought about running, but that might put all my friends in danger, all my new friends in danger too. I'm through with that anyway. I made my decision. I'm gonna make my stand right here and take whatever they want to give me. Just as Jesus himself gave over his life willingly without hesitation, so will I. My prayer is that if any of my friends see this video you don't know Jesus, you'll not make the same mistakes I have. You won't wait a lot of years and run around and run away, but you'll make him your Lord and Savior before it's too late. If you're watching this, confess Jesus as Lord. Believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead on Easter Sunday morning. That's all you have to do. If you do that, I look forward to seeing you some other time in some other place. Here they come. I guess it's time for me to make my stand.
As stated so well by the Maximus from the movie Gladiator, what we do in life echoes in eternity. From all of us at FNN, thank you, my friend, for your faithful service to the cause of freedom. We will keep up the fight. Earlier, we discussed the possible pagan roots of the Easter holiday, including Baal and Ishtar from Babylon and Assyria. For those of us old enough to remember, however, Easter had a significantly different role in the Christian church. In the United States and other Western nations, people who rarely attended religious services any other time of the year will pull out the stops and make an appearance on Easter Sunday morning. Even though Ruth Johnson was an especially enthusiastic churchgoer, she still remembers Easter Sunday as something special.
I remember growing up, Easter Sunday was a special day. My mom made my dress, and she bought me shoes. The older ladies looked so nice in their outfits and their fancy hats. It was simply delightful. The choir sang. The preacher preached his best sermon of the year. Everyone was happy. Those were the days. As I got older, I learned how important Easter really was. Jesus not only died for my sins, he also rose on Easter Sunday morning so that I would have a place to live forever with him in heaven. Hallelujah! Now that's something to shout about. I guess all of that is behind us now because they've shut down all the churches. I guess I'll have to wait until I'm home with Jesus.
And now we have Bishop J. Edwards, who was dean at Veritas Christian Divinity School before its forced closing by the Harmonious Union. Bishop, welcome, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Maximus. It's my pleasure.
First of all, allow me to express my surprise that you agreed to come on today without taking greater security precautions. You didn't ask to have your name and face kept secret.
No, Maximus, the world leaders are well aware of who I am, so it's really no use in hiding. I do enjoy some protection by virtue of how well known I am. I believe there is a little concern of some kind of uprising if they come after me physically. Instead, they work hard to discredit my message through propaganda and rhetoric. Additionally, I am in a secret and secure location. I don't believe in taking unwarranted risks.
I understand. Bishop, you heard the earlier report about the origins of Easter. How do you reconcile all of that with your faith? You deny these historical origins?
As you are aware, my former calling was with Verita's Christian Divinity School. Verita is Latin for truth. I don't believe it serves any good purpose to deny truth, even if it isn't always comfortable or convenient.
So how do you justify worshiping a holiday that is dedicated to another god?
That is a great question. I'm so glad you asked. It's usually a question I address with my students every year. Christians throughout his centuries have been blessed with a certain ability to relate to people on their own level. In the Bible, Jesus used sheep and business to relate the kingdom to people that understood sheep and business. And also, we see the Apostle Paul address philosophers at Mars Hill in Acts chapter 17. The hill is actually named after a false god, by the way. He used their false unknown God to tell them the need for a real Jesus. He even referenced their writings in their own poets. In Roman culture, where polytheism was prolific, Christians looked for ways to build bridges from where people were to the one true God. Since people believed in a God that brought things back to life, it was a good launching point to talk about Jesus, who came back to life. What better day to do that than a day where people are celebrating life? Our God is a God of redemption. He takes broken things and he fixes them.
That is a very interesting way to look at it, Bishop. But what about Easter? Is it really appropriate to use the name of another God to celebrate the resurrection of yours?
Well, historians believe the word Easter actually is a derivative of the word Passover, but I wouldn't argue that point here. I will simply encourage believers to follow their conscience. If they believe the name is celebratory to a false god, simply call it Resurrection Day instead. I kind of like that one better myself.
Thank you, Bishop. That has certainly cleared up a lot of confusion in my mind. In the few minutes remaining, what would you like to say to our viewers?
Thank you. I would encourage everyone watching this broadcast to give their hearts and life to Jesus Christ. He is this promised one of God who came to earth to fulfill Jewish prophecy. He gave his life so that we can reunite with God the Father. He is God made flesh to restore our flesh back to God. Neither is there any salvation in any other, for there is none other name under heaven given among man whereby we must be saved. Acts 4:12. Be blessed.
Thank you. Good night.